Hello, Sonia from Sonyas Quilts and Embroidery here, and I am going to teach an introduction to sewing. This will be a good class for young girls, young boys that would like to learn how to sew, and for anybody that has never sewn before. Hopefully this will help you get started. First of all, I'd like to show you excuse me, some of the tools of the trade. We have these snips. These are good snips for cutting cutting strings off of your project while you're at the machine. It's a good handy pair of snips to have by your machine. That's the only place you would really need these is beside your sewing machine. I do not recommend these for young people because they are extremely sharp on the end. Very, very sharp. So, adult supervision with these. These are a good pair of scissors to clip your threads. This is just a small little pair of Fiskars, but they're not sharp on the end. They've got a very short blade, and they're just a good pair of scissors to cut threads apart as you're sewing and clipping long threads. This is a pair of Sewology from Hobby Lobby. I keep about 6 pair of these new at all times. When Sewology goes on sale about every 3 weeks, buy about 4, 5, 6 pair. That makes them $1 a pair, and I've always got a good pair of sharp scissors. These will last about a week of cutting out 100 t-shirts. They'll last about a week. You will know when they're finished. And then they're usually demoted to paper scissors or cutting stabilizers for embroidery. But the reason I like these is because when you're doing hours and hours and hours of cutting, they don't wear the hand out as much. So, and these are just a good pair of scissors. They have a nice sloped end to them. They're not so pointy. So that's a good pair of scissors. Then, this is a pair of dressmaker scissors. These are Gingers. I highly recommend Ginger. I have been using Gingers for years. These are a nice pair of sharp scissors for accurate cutting, such as dressmaking and that sort of thing. When you want an accurate cut, this is a good pair of scissors. I do not recommend these for children. They could possibly cut a finger off. These scissors are extremely sharp, and they do have a pointed end, and they're very heavy. I use these rarely. These can be sharpened. These would not be worth sharpening, but these can be sharpened. In my area, they cost about $8 to get sharpened. These are expensive scissors, and I really like them. I've been using them for a long, long time, more than 30 years. But I do not recommend these for children. Next, we have a seam ripper. One of the best friends you'll ever have. When it comes to sewing, there are mistakes to be made, and this is the best friend that you'll ever have for fixing your mistakes. Do not be intimidated by sewing, because sewing is simply needle and thread, and it can be in fabric, and it can be fixed. And this is your friend to help you out. These are pointed on the end so that you can get underneath the thread, but the real blade on the seam ripper is the curve right here. That's what cuts your thread. So that is protected from getting cut, but the pointy end is very pointy, and I have stabbed myself with these countless times over the years, and you don't forget it quickly. It's got a big point, and it does hurt to get jabbed with these. And then we've got just a regular tape measure. This one is 60 inches, 5 feet. And it's good for measuring hems, waist, everybody's measurements to decide what size pattern you need to use. I do not make clothing. A lot of people think, oh, this is another pair of scissors I've got. They're just a decorative pair, no name. nice blunt end on them, and just a good little pair of scissors, good for little hands. I do not make clothing. Since I have been sewing for the public, I have come to understand that people think that if you can thread a needle, that you can reupholstery a boat, or you can make a wedding dress. My specialty is the memory items, which includes quilts, pillows, memory bears, and I do also make do a lot of applique, some dresses and stuff like that. But those dresses are already made. I order the blanks and they're shipped to me. I do not make clothing. I have a friend that specializes in custom children's clothing, and she does her thing and I do my thing, and I admire her work and she admires mine, but I do not make clothing of any kind. Next, I want to show you this sewing machine. Oh, also, we have our thread, our spools of thread. It's always handy to have a nice selection, and I do have a large selection of these. I do not use these on my commercial machine that I sew on, but for a small machine, you do need this kind of thread, and you need a nice size selection. So for the demonstration of this machine, I'm going to use this dark red. Okay, let's pull the machine forward. I've already got it plugged up, and I want to show you how to thread, how to wind your bobbin, and how to thread this machine, and how to play with some of the decorative stitches. And that will be all that we will do tonight, is show you how to wind the bobbin, and that might take some practice. Sometimes we don't do so well on the first one, but after the first one, just unwind it and do it again, and you'll get better. It'll get easier every time, to where you'll know exactly what you're doing and how it's supposed to look. This machine, has the when it's transported, it has a snap thread holder, but you unsnap it. By the way, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I do have 4 Brother sewing machines in my sewing room, but I just like Brothers. There's some people that like the other brands. I just like Brothers, and I know how to use them. I know what kind of thread needles to buy. I know how to fix them when something goes wrong. So I just really like the Brothers, but not sponsored by Brothers at all. We'll put our thread on. Can't remember. Like so. Then we're going to take a bobbin out of the bobbin housing. There is a little tab right here. And we just take our finger and move it over, and then pop out the plate. Remove the bobbin. This one has just a little bit of thread on it, and I'm going to remove that. We put our bobbin here. Then we run our thread. I'm going to move my camera back just a little bit so you can have a wider view of this machine. There we go. And we run our thread, and we take it through the loop on the back, and then run it around this little thing here and under this. This little screw gives the thread some tension so that it will wind and be a nice bobbin. You just take a little slack and wind it around your bobbin, and then we snap our bobbin next to this. I call it a clutch. I don't know what it's really called, but I call it a clutch. And then we mash the foot pedal. And I hope I haven't used this machine in a while, so I hope I haven't got the bobbin going the wrong direction. And I do. This is how I normally do these, and I've forgotten, like I said, I haven't used this machine in a while. But there's a little hole in the bobbin casing, the bobbin, and we'd stick our thread through that hole, theoretically, out the top. We hold it with our fingers. We push it into the clutch. Then we mash our foot pedal. And when it gets some thread on it, take it and clip that off the top there. And we just let that finish. And when this bobbin gets through winding, this clutch will actually disengage. My daughter wanted me to explain to her on the phone one day how to wind a bobbin. It's very hard to do over the phone. Actually, that did not disengage, but you can just pull it over and disengage it yourself. Then we take our bobbin, and I have my thread coming out on my left side, on the left side of the machine, and there's a little moon shape with an arrow. Put your thread under that, come through here all the way to this cutting blade and pull it. And there's a diagram on the side of your machine showing you exactly what I just did. Now to thread the machine, we're going to go to this loop on the back. Again, we'll come down this first, says number 2, go down, there's number 3 showing you to go back up. And there is a looper inside there that if you'll pull the thread to this side, then it will come right, it'll be hooked around the looper. And then we will put the thread on the bracket above the needle and then thread it. And then we bring our thread down in the split in the foot and pull it back. Then we will take our bobbin case, the top to the bobbin case, and just simply put it back in there and let it snap. Now the best way to do now is to take your needle thread and hold it and spin the wheel with your hand and pull it up, and it will engage the bobbin thread. And the bobbin thread, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's sticking up right there. You just want to bring it to the top. Sorry, I've been sick. Then we'll take this is our scrap fabric, just to look at the stitches on this machine. Right now this machine is set on a straight stitch, which is 0, 0, but we can also, with this on 0, 0, we can take these numbers, this plus and minuses, and we can move the needle over. With the bottom plus sign, you can see the needle moving over. And you can, that way you can adjust your seam allowance. And then we'll... I didn't sew straight at all. But we're just looking, there's actually a thread cutter on the end of this machine. Just take your thread across and cut it. But there is a nice straight stitch. This is a good opportunity to show you how to use a seam ripper. Take your seam ripper, put it under the thread. Most of the time you can just not have to cut the thread every time, because you don't want a whole lot of really small threads. Go to the back side. And that seam is gone. No damage to the fabric, just the seam is gone. All right, let's try a decorative stitch. One of my personal favorites, and I use a lot, is number 4. So you would look, it says 0, 0. So you would go to the second number, the second 0, press the plus sign. You get 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, and 0, 4. And this makes a zigzag stitch. And the best way to decide if it's a zigzag stitch that you like is to try it on a piece of scrap fabric first. And that's a nice zigzag stitch. But you can, for applique, if you want to start getting into applique, you need to make your stitch lengths shorter. So this stitch is a nice width, but you need to make your stitch length shorter. So looking on this machine, this is the stitch length on top. We would just go to about, I think 7 is what I always like to use. But it's 0.7 on the top. It's the same stitch, it's just a lot closer together. And still, for applique, that's too wide for me. I guess it's a personal preference. So I would go down to about 4. I wish I had written down the size. For applique. Much better for applique. A lot closer stitch. I don't know why it's closer right there, but like I said, I may have wore this machine out already. I've not used it in a long time, but I do. If I were going to replace them for a small sewing machine like this, I would probably go back and get this one because I really, really like it. But I make millions and millions of stitches per day, and a machine like this just cannot hold up for that. It's not made for that. So let's try another decorative stitch. Let's go down here in the bottom, this little flower stitch. And we would go up on the first one to 6. And we would go down, take the 4 down to 2. And also, this stitch is also affected by the stitch width and the stitch length. Most of the time, this one set itself. It set itself at 2.0 and 7.0 for the needle position. The stitch length is at 2.0, and you can adjust it from there, but that's just the standard the machine has this stitch set at, and it changed itself. Now with these decorative stitches, you'll see the fabric going backwards and forth, and just kind of hold it loosely. You don't want to hold it tight. Just hold it loosely and let it do its thing. This button right here is the back stitch, so you can go back a couple of stitches to hold your stitches in place. And we have a nice little stitch. It could be used for decorative stitches around a collar, around a hem. There's just this machine has actually got 100. Goes from 00 to 99 in the decorative stitches. It's got the buttonholes. There's machines that have more stitches than this, But most people that have a machine that has more stitches than this never use most of them. They find their favorites and they use those all the time. So I hope that I have cleared up a few things about sewing and the tools that you will need, how to thread a machine, how to thread the bobbin, and just take a scrap piece of fabric and just play with it. And just see what you like, see, and practice. Take a pencil and a ruler and draw you a straight line, and practice making your stitches straight. Practice following a guide so that you will know if you can make a straight stitch. If a child can make a straight stitch, a child is ready to sew. If the stitch goes off of the line that you've drawn, they're not ready. They're just too young. They're not ready for it yet. Sometimes I will retract that just a little bit. Sometimes they're intimidated by the machine and they're scared. But after they get used to the sounds of the machine and the way the machine moves and everything, they'll get past that and they will enjoy it. And who knows, you may have a designer in the future. They may design dresses. They may design quilts. They could design children's clothing or home decorator type items, throw pillows or comforters or whatever. So my daughters, got 2 daughters, neither one of them ever showed an ounce of interest in sewing. And if the interest is not there, there's no point in pushing it. They've got to have a passion. And my grandmother enjoyed sewing. My mother enjoyed sewing. I've got some aunts that used to sew all the time. And it just, it got passed down to me, but it did not get passed down to my daughters. So it's kind of like playing the piano. If there's no passion, there's no point in buying a piano. So thank you all very much. Next Tuesday evening, we will actually sew some fabric together. So if you would like to buy just a small piece of fabric, maybe a yard, something like that. And so there's always, when you get in the ready to do something, it's always good to have the things you need to do that. Because sometimes if you have to go and pick it up, the mood has passed. That's why I have 10,000 yards of fabric, 75 colors of thread, and 5 sewing machines, so that when I get ready to do something, I've got everything that I need to do that. Thank you all so very much. If you have any comments or any questions, please leave those down below. I will leave my address in the description box for anyone that has a quilt that they would like to have finished. And I appreciate you so very much. And happy sewing. And hit that subscription button, the post bell notification, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoy the video. Thank you so much.